You're listening to the A Bit From Within podcast with Felicia Marty. How can I have such wonderful belief systems around we're all worthy enough, we're all doing our best, we are, money is just energy, there's enough for all of us. Like I have all of these things, and yet I have these wounds that I'm carrying around with me, these limited beliefs that have me moving through life overthinking everything. And even then, it's like when I say I don't trust myself, part of me feels like fighting that, because if there's anything in me that I believe in, it's my ability to overcome the horrible crap. But maybe that's what it comes down to, is that maybe part of me just believes that I'm always gonna have things fall apart. I'm never gonna get what I want. Hi there, everyone, and thank you so much for joining me for another episode of the A Bit From Within podcast. I'm Felicia, and I'm so delighted to be taking an evening to sit here and share some of what's been on my heart with all of you. And I want to say thank you in advance for always just tuning in, being a part of my community, even if it is, just a small part of what I'm saying that resonates with you. It's cool that so many of us living different lives and living in playing different roles and coming from very different situations, that we all still have so much in common. Somewhere lying within all of the stuff that we're dealing with, there are so many shared feelings. So I'm just trying to take a moment to really feel the gratitude for that right here at the beginning. This week, gosh, honestly, it feels like yesterday I was already recording last week's podcast. This past week has flown by, and it has continued to just be a really tricky time in my life. If I'm being totally transparent, which I vowed to kind of always do when I come to this space and sit down. I feel like I'm just going through a lot inside, and stuff that I feel like I am frustrated with myself on not getting further or not being more successful at seeing progress. And I feel like when I get like this, that all I really want to do is retreat. And I often retreat back into my work, where I feel safe and comfortable and like at least I know what I'm doing. Because there is so much going on in my life right now where it's causing me to make me feel like fuck, I don't know what I'm doing. I just feel, like a little bit like a fish out of water. And I've also been noticing this kind of theme playing in the back of my head that's like, you don't have time to not know what you're doing. Anyone else feel that way? I know it's so silly, because I know that there's never going to necessarily be a time when you're filled with answers, or even when, you just feel like everything in your life is going your way. I think that's probably one of the biggest misconceptions, and maybe one of the reasons that I feel like I'm combating that so often is because I'm a wedding photographer, and I feel like I'm constantly captured in these moments of people's lives where it feels like there's a lot of green lights happening. And that's very much on the outside, right? I talk to so many of my couples who are going through so much, and it makes me very aware that a wedding is not necessarily a green light moment in your life. I do think there's a lot of magic around weddings, but I also know that there's couples who are struggling with infertility as they're getting pregnant or trying to buy a house or have sick parents, or, there's just so many other things going on. You can't just take one snapshot that you see of somebody's life on the outside and think that everything is going great for them, right? It's not always like that. And the other thing that I know, that I just read a lot of romantic comedies, and I've watched a lot of romantic comedy movies. I just love those kind of lighthearted stories where everything works out for the happily ever after, and not even just the kind of books. I've been reading a lot of books lately, and I was just talking with a really close friend about this. We were talking about the kind of books we love, and my favorite fiction books usually fall into that romantic comedy category, but they are so rarely just about falling in love. Like my favorite books are the ones where, yeah, that might happen as like a piece of part of somebody's journey or even just like the possibility of something. But really, it's about falling in love with yourself and going through the hard time and figuring out yourself through the pain and becoming more vulnerable. Those are always my favorite stories. In fact, this past month, I've read some really, really good books that I'm just going to totally get off track of everything else I was talking about and share them with you because I know so many of you are book lovers too. The first one was sent to me quite a while ago by one of my dearest, closest friends. It was one of those like surprise books that like you just check your mail and it was in there, and it was such a great surprise. And it's called The Book Charmer, written by Karen Hawkins. And this has been one of those books that has kind of just stayed with me recently. The characters just so beautiful. The city, the story has very wonderful elements of like just a little bit of magical realism, which I just absolutely love. And then I found this book on the Libby app actually because I've been doing a lot of reading on my tablet, and it was called okay, gotta think of the name of this. Midnight at the Blackbird Cafe by Heather Weber. And oh my gosh, this was another one. Elements of magical realism, amazing characters. Check them both out and let me know what you think of them, because I am one of those notoriously bad people at explaining books and not just giving it all away, because every part of it feels so real and important to me. And I was not prepared to talk about it. So all of that is just to say, definitely go read those books. Check them out. They're beautiful. But also, just I feel like so much of me is always waiting for these moments in my life where it just like feels like everything is falling into the right place and everything feels good. And yeah, those moments definitely happen. I can think back to earlier this summer, like right around June, I was feeling like I was in a really good vibe and a really good place. And that's life, right? Like life is not, you're not always going to be in a great place and you're not always going to be in a terrible place. You're going to kind of fluctuate somewhere between the two. And it's, peaks and valleys, right? Sometimes things are going great. Sometimes you're trying to figure things out. And this current, I guess you could say, kind of valley that I'm kind of trekking through, it just, honestly, it is kind of this moment where I am really trying to reckon with the progress that I have not made in my life. And I don't actually mean about any of the kind of cliche stuff that I was just alluding to, like marriage or kids or starting a family or buying another house. It's not like stuff like that on the outside. Like even though those are all things that I would love to have, like even just a vacation, I would love a vacation. More so the things that I am feeling frustrated by have to do with not making progress on, I guess, just being who and where I want to be. And these are really hard things to talk about because I don't have all of the information figured out, and I don't want to come across as just lost or complaining or anything like that. But if I'm being honest, it's just, there's so much of me that just feels a little bit out of place with this very fast and demanding life that I live. And it's not that I am not capable of it. I am so capable of running my life the way that I've been running it. And, things are moving forward and the business is growing and et cetera, et cetera. But it's like sometimes when I read these books, I just get this like swelling in my throat that's like, what I wouldn't give to be out in the middle of nowhere with disconnected from technology, just writing or reading or having connection with the people who I'm with, instead of feeling like I'm kind of on this hamster wheel that I feel like I'm on. And it has forced me to kind of have this realization lately that I feel somewhat disconnected from the life that I have to live right now. Like, I really feel like I have no choice in my life but to live this life. I feel like I don't have other options to move somewhere and quit my job and try something new. And that is somewhat lonely and somewhat scary, just to have that moment. And it makes me question myself, and it makes me question all of the decisions that have got me to where I am. Because, like, the truth is that it's not like I am living my 5-year plan or my 10-year plan. It's just like immediately when I say that, I get zoomed right back to the decision that I made to go to get a degree in theater when I was a high school senior. There was never even anything else that I considered. I just felt like I really enjoyed theater. I really enjoyed storytelling. I really enjoyed the magic of theater. I was so deeply emotionally woven into the safety that the theater world in high school had created for me. And then I found that same kind of community throughout college. And I knew that I was exactly where I was supposed to be. And, I just sailed through it. I was very determined. I was like, I'm going to get my degree in 4 years. We're just going to do this. And then as I got closer to senior year, actually graduating from theater, I was in such an awkward place because I was doing so well in school. My senior year, they had let me compete in this director's competition that was like a regional competition at the beginning, and then like I won that, and then went on to this national kind of. That part wasn't a competition, but it was just where like all of the winners got to come together and have this amazing connection together and experience classes and watch theater, and it was amazing. So it was like. And then I also graduated as outstanding graduate of the College of Arts and Media at CU Denver. And so I had this very like vivid reinforcement from, people I deemed a lot smarter than me. And like, you are awesome, you are outstanding, you are great at this, like, you can do this. And yet I also had this feeling inside of me that was a little bit like, okay, well, how is this actually going to work? Like, am I going to go off and be a playwright? Am I going to go off and be a director? Like, am I going to want to do shows? And I didn't have the answers. I wasn't exactly scared of it, but I also just didn't know. And then I went and lived in Silverton that summer, teaching theater to kids, kind of running their theater summer camp with some friends. It was a really important summer in my life. And we were acting and then at night, and it was really, really cool. And during that time in my life, there was also a huge heartbreak situation happening. There was love that was happening. There were, it was kind of a mess, to be honest. It was like one of the themes in the younger part of my life was definitely this unrequited love. I was an expert at falling head over heels for wonderful guy friends who were not interested in me romantically. But I was sure that if I stuck with it, or if I was patient enough, that it would work out. And it never did. But that summer, was a big, huge revelation in that. And I got back and my heart broke. Started working at Starbucks just because I needed something to do to make money. I wasn't going to just go to college and then do nothing. And I also had a really heartbreaking moment happen in like my career moment that I wasn't prepared for, nor do I think I I no longer, because I wasn't in college anymore, I no longer had the resources of people in my life to really process it through. And I don't usually, I never really talk about this stuff because it was so long ago and it just doesn't come up anymore. But I'll share this story since I'm talking about it right now. And I'll back up just a little bit so you have a little bit more context. As my senior thesis, I wrote this short play called In the Light. And it was a 3-person play that kind of balances this very dysfunctional family where the mother, who was kind of very violent and abusive towards her children, she is kind of suffering from dementia or Alzheimer's. She's suffering with her memories. And so she is reliving memories with her son from memory. And then the daughter, who is inside the situation, is experiencing her brother as a ghost because her brother has died. And it's kind of him encouraging her to break out of the abusive situation with the mother, and then kind of also her learning the truth of why her mother was the way she was. It was kind of dark. It was a little bit dark, but the other thing I'll say is, like, as a writer, I definitely feel like the stuff that I have written and written back then is stuff that it comes out of you. It's not something you create. It's not like I sat down to write a story like this or knew I wanted to create a story like that. It's just, it had to come out. It was the truth. Like, it came to me and through me. So lived with these characters. It was very interesting and beautiful, and it was a very important piece in my life, and it was something I was very proud of. I had the most amazing actors like in my senior thesis, and it was really, really cool. And then I went away that summer, and during the summer I had written part 2 of, I realized that In the Light was like a trilogy. And so that was kind of like the second or third piece. And so the first piece I decided I would write was called The Boat. And it was kind of like the prequel to what happens in the Light. And it is about Dane, the brother, before he dies, and what leads up, like, right before he actually kills himself. So I wrote this wonderful, another kind of like short play called The Boat. And it had gotten chosen to be a part of, like, that fall, like that November was going to be in this college thing where, like, the seniors then would be able to direct original plays, and then, you'd be a part of it. And it was the first time that I had to kind of be involved as a writer, but also not really be that involved because I wasn't in school anymore. And then I also wasn't a part of the rehearsals. I wasn't the director. I wasn't anything. I was just the writer. And when I went to see it played, I just felt like it was not, it just didn't feel like my play. And it's weird to say that now, because having had so much space from this, this was like 12 years ago. I think back and I see different things now, and I appreciate different things. Like, I think of the actor who played the 2 actors that played the roles, and how they did a great job with the words. But the interpretation of it was really, really hard for me. It was kind of like set in the 80s, and it just couldn't have been further from how I pictured it. Because everything that I like to write in a very timeless way, where it's like it could be set in the 1880s, it could be set in 2000. It's like it's because it's not about how the time is affecting what's happening. It's about the people going through something. And so I when I directed In the Light, it was very much like just kind of this timeless feel like it could have been in any era. And having it set the boat set so distinctly in the 80s just felt like this gross interpretation of the story. And it was something that I couldn't let go of. And it didn't really do that great. Like it was fine, but it didn't, it wasn't outstanding. And it just kind of felt like it was this sign. It was part of this huge part of my life where like everything just felt like it did a 180. Like I wanted nothing to do with theater after that. And it wasn't just because of that. It was because of the heartbreak. It was because of the people. I had been let down by a lot of people that were in my trusted community. There was a lot of loss that was happening in my life. And then there was just the practicality of like, you don't make anything when you work in the theater. Everything is volunteer or, you're doing it as a side hustle. Like it's really hard to make it in the theater world. And I didn't really want that either. And I didn't want the schedule. I actually like realized around that time in my life, like I don't want the schedule of being in the theater. I don't know if I want that. And I spent the next, probably 3 or 4 years, like really wrestling with that, like wondering if I would go back to theater or back to writing or if I'd get into episodic television or what I would do. And during that whole time, I just started getting pulled into photography and fell into photography in a way that felt very doable and very fun, and where I got to use a lot of what I learned and loved in school in photography, which was, it definitely came out in weddings because weddings definitely feel like some kind of theatrical production in a lot of ways. And I had a lot of experience as a stage manager and as an assistant director and director. And I feel like you play those roles for sure when you're a wedding photographer. You got to kind of direct things. You got to know what's happening next. You got to know what people need. You need to know how to speak to people. You need to know how to read them. You need to be able to manage things that go not so great. And so it really fed me. And at that point, it was just, honestly, since I graduated, it's just been me living 1 year to the next, kind of figuring out, okay, well, what is the next version of success here? What's possible here? Like once I learned photography, then I was like, okay, well, can I start my own business? And okay, well, while I do that, I need to work a different job. Okay, well, what's the next version of success? Okay, it'll be, can I actually, support myself? Can I make my own schedule 100%? Can I run my own business full time? Okay, yeah, I can, I guess. I did that. And then it was, can I buy my own house? And then it was, can we do this full time, just me and Dave? And now I'm here, and it's like, I've never had a plan. And I am feeling as though somewhere along the way, there was a part of me that really needed stability and security. And I never had that as an option. And now I'm sitting here, in my house and inside the bones of this house, inside of this structure that I've built around me. And I just guess that I'm wondering, like, am I safe here? If I don't show up and do everything that is happening in my life, will my life fall apart? And that kind of brings me to the real topic that I was going to share about today, which is just trust. But first, let's take a short break, and then we will dive into the topic of trust. And I promise I'll throw in the Astros check-in at the end. Okay, so trust. This is a word that kind of showed up for me yesterday, and it was one of those that I was like, oh crap, this is a big thing I need to pay attention to right now. I actually wrote myself a note to do some some work on this word of trust. And it was really interesting because what had caught my eye is I was, scrolling through TikTok, and there's this creator who I really like. Her name is @liker_of_words, and she's a psychic, and she can read energy very well, and she's an author, and she's really, really cool. But she was talking specifically about right now is really a time where we're getting ready for these new manifestations. And she was talking about money specifically. And she was saying one thing that she has always seen is that money energetically shows up exactly like trust does. And there's probably a lot. If you want to check her out, go check out her video on this. But for me, this kind of stopped me in my tracks because probably since Dave and I really started talking realistically about what our financial situation would be like when he left Apple, I've noticed myself feel more and more like I'm trying to hold on to, I guess, whatever we have. Like it made me feel unsafe somehow, even though logically it doesn't. This is totally an emotional thing, because logically, if it really made me feel unsafe, I probably wouldn't have signed off on it, and we wouldn't have figured it out. We wouldn't have been doing well for almost 6 months now. Like we are, and done it during a pandemic. Like there's a lot of, reasons that people wouldn't have, but I knew logistically it would be fine. But emotionally, it has caused me a lot of fear. And when I heard her say this thing about money and trust, I realized I'm like, I just don't have a lot of trust in this situation. Like this has brought up probably like 100% of it is not even connected to Dave and I. It's connected to a lot of past trauma for me around abandonment, around safety, security, of the rug being pulled out from beneath me, of shit just going wrong. And I've been trying to kind of sit with the word trust and figure out, what is it that I don't trust? Is it that I don't trust life? Is it that I don't trust money? Is it that I don't trust others? Is it that I don't trust myself? That one's kind of a big one, which I'll go back to that one here in a little bit. But I started to realize there's this kind of huge inner conflict against what I say I believe, what I feel unshakable truth in my life, and then in my belief system. Because I've always said this, and I learned this a long time ago, and I've felt this, like this is something that has carried me through all of these years that I haven't had a plan, which is money is energy. Like there will always be more money. There will always, because money is energy. And every year of my life, I've had more money than the last year. Even during COVID, like, I don't know if there was really more money, but like there was enough, and there was more than I would have thought during a worldwide pandemic. But I have this unshakable belief in that it's like money is energy. You can always have more money. You can attract more money. You can have it. I believe that with every inch of me. It's like, I don't not believe that. But I don't know that I trust that it can work for me. And I realized that has to do with not trusting myself, with some issues with self-esteem that I haven't been able to fully heal. And it's really hard to admit that because it makes me feel sad and a little bit lost. And I actually, as I was kind of researching this word trust, and I was on YouTube kind of hearing different people talk, I found this video that was like 8 signs that you don't trust yourself. And I thought, well, this should be interesting. And I did not expect almost every single one of them to hit me. And it's not 100% of the time, but some of the things that had come up were like, you try to control everything. You are hypercritical. Like you don't have a good sense of self-worth, so you're constantly criticizing yourself. You find yourself afraid to speak up in certain situations, and I have noticed that in myself more recently. It was just really interesting to sit with all of these kind of signs that like you don't trust yourself. And I was kind of, again, wrestling with this, like, how can I have such wonderful belief systems around, we're all worthy enough. We're all doing our best. We are, money is just energy. There's enough for all of us. Like I have all of these things, and yet I have these wounds that I'm carrying around with me, these limited beliefs that have me moving through life, overthinking everything, and this anxiety that is, sometimes palpable. And even then, like it's like when I say I don't trust myself, part of me feels like fighting that, because if there's anything in me that I believe in, it's my ability to overcome the horrible crap. But maybe that's what it comes down to, is that maybe part of me just believes that like I'm always going to have that shoe drop. I'm always going to have the shit storm. I'm always going to have things fall apart. I'm never going to get what I want. And it's really hard to admit that, because I wouldn't want that for any of you. It's like I could cry for myself that I don't believe that for myself the same way that I believe that for you. Thus, coming full circle to about a month ago when we were talking about self-compassion, right? This is a moment where I need to have self-compassion. I need to be my own friend, where I need to give myself that trust that, even if I do overthink things, like I don't need to be so rigid with myself. I don't need to be on this tightrope of yes or no, of fail or succeed, right? It's like maybe it could all just be. I really want to figure out what it means to have a better trust in myself and in my life. I feel like that could unlock a lot for me. And obviously, I know you can hear it in my voice that I don't have a lot of answers right now, as per usual, right? Just sharing bits from within, sometimes, rarely, though, with conclusions. But I do feel like one of the key issues with not trusting myself has to do with distraction and not giving myself enough time to really tune inward. And that's hard for me because immediately my mind goes to, okay, well, what are you going to do to give yourself more time and space? Like, what are you going to take off your plate? And again, I feel like I can't take anything off my plate, because if I do, then things will fall apart. And I'm not sure if that's really true or not. I have to sit and think with that. But I do know that I can see clearly right now, without having an answer, that the way that things are moving in my life right now is not moving in a way that is supporting me as who I really am. And I don't think that things will change overnight or that they will change with one simple decision. But maybe this is one of those moments in my life where I can start to put out into the universe what I hope for. That in a year or two, if I listen back to this, that I will have found those necessary changes that give me more of what I need, that slower pace, that freedom to be myself, right? Because it's another piece of the trust is like, if I don't trust myself, how am I going to trust you with me, right? So there's a part of me that has been holding back, that's afraid, and I, am ready to break through that. And as we kind of wrap up here, I will kind of transition into today's Astro segment and kind of share that, this is actually a perfect time for this theme to be coming up because we are heading into a new moon in Leo on Sunday, August 8th. And this is an interesting one because we're kind of sandwiched between these two Aquarius full moons in Leo. So, 3 kind of pieces of this lunar cycle all happening in Leo this year. And the Aquarius full moon is about, kind of breaking through the structures, breaking through the barriers, finding freedom in being who we need to be. And then, of course, Sun in Leo is about inner light and shining and being creative and being yourself and even being a little bit dramatic, right? So with this new moon in Leo, it's going to be a really amazing time to be looking at the parts of our self-esteem that have been damaged or taken a tumble or a little wobbly, and figuring out how we can repair those pieces so that we can really be who we are. Another astrologer I was just listening to recently reminded those that she was talking to, like, none of us know what we're doing. And I didn't realize until just right now as I'm sharing this back with you, like how much I needed to hear that, because again, it goes full circle back to the beginning. Sometimes it feels like everyone else has it all figured out. But if that's really not true, if we can accept that as a fact that it's not true, then we know that not only do we need to be ourselves, but maybe by us just being brave enough to be our real selves, that we will give other people permission to be their real selves too. And maybe some of us that feel kind of constrained by what we should be doing or how we should be, or trying to protect ourselves because we've been so let down by the life we've lived up to this point. Maybe we can find that bravery to let some of that go, to be a little bit more free. So, when it comes to this Leo new moon next week, find that inner part of you that needs to shine. And I'm sure that now that I have told you all of this crap going on inside of me, I don't know if that makes you want to listen to me as a teacher. I don't blame you if it doesn't. But if you are interested, I actually just filmed a yoga class that's up on the Patreon right now that is a 45-minute class for owning your power. And so it's a really beautiful kind of, it's gentle yoga, but it's definitely a little bit more heating. There's some twisting and some triangle pose and some warrior two. And I recommend that you get your kind of third chakra stuff out. You get your yellows out. You get your self kind of in this frame where you're ready to break through in some of that confidence. And, all of us can do that. I mean, even me, it's like I can teach it, but I can also know that I need to live that, and I need to embrace it, and I need to grow in that area too. So you can always check out that class if that topic is speaking to you. It's definitely a great practice to do at any point during this Leo season and beyond, but especially during Leo season, I feel like, because Leo is this such a strong resonator with the sun. And that's where we are right now in this year. The other thing I'll say is, like, if you love this lunar cycle work, check out my new moon guide that's on my website. It's a standalone guide that will walk you through different rituals that you can do during a new moon, and just talk about kind of yin and yang energy of a new moon. The new moon is so interesting because I do feel like I come up with a new ritual that is included for free in every monthly guide, but the new moon guide, that's like the standalone guide, it has something for all to meet you where you are during a new moon cycle. So you might not be feeling very energized, or you might feel really energized and ready to manifest, or you might be feeling low energy and need to take it a little bit easier. That standalone guide will give you different ideas to meet you exactly where you are during that unique month. So always feel free to check that out. All right, you guys, that is it for me today. Let's go ahead and do a card reading to end today's podcast. I was getting ready to come in here, and I have these little change, they say change on them. My mom gave these to me. I feel like they might be like cards from some like Al-Anon material, but they are something that I've kept on my altar, and something in me was like, you need to grab those for today's card drawing. So I am shuffling these little change cards. We'll see what comes up. Today, I withdraw from the competition. I enjoy my life and the directions I've chosen. Holy shit. Today, I withdraw from the competition. I enjoy my life and the directions I've chosen. Guys, that makes me want to cry a little bit. Maybe it's a theme going on in our world right now, because, of course, I can't help but think of Simone Biles and everything that's been happening in the Olympics and women's gymnastics, and just with her. And I've been so inspired by that. Maybe we can talk about that on a different podcast. But I love this card for this idea of like actively withdrawing from that mindset, that game that you play with yourself, that it has to be a win or a lose situation, and choosing to enjoy life and choosing to enjoy the directions that you've chosen in your life. It's like I could sit here and I say this card now to the girl who just, 30 minutes ago was feeling frustrated that I didn't have a life plan. It's like, instead of sitting here criticizing myself for that, or looking at the ways that I might have fucked it up, just having this moment to really just be like, wow, why don't I just enjoy my life and own and enjoy the directions that I've taken myself, and enjoy the fact that I know what it's like to run a business, enjoy the fact that I get to make my own schedule, enjoy the fact that I live in this house, in this neighborhood, like enjoy where I am. It's really beautiful, isn't it? And as truthful as everything that I just said was, there's also a little truth that gets unlocked with that I want that for myself. I don't feel this 100% of the time, or even maybe like 5% of the time I feel this, but I'd like to get that up. So, all right, you guys, this would be a great episode for you guys to reach out and let me know, like thumbs up or thumbs down if you resonate with this one. I'd be curious to know. So if you want to shoot me a message, you can. If you want to let me know what you think, you can always share a review or just shoot me an email at abitfromwithin@feliciamarty.com, or check out Instagram, whatever works for you works for me too. Of course, I'll be back next week, and until next time.